All right. Welcome back, everybody. We're here again. Be good people. What episode is this, Luke?
14, number 14.
14. We're going to be, is this the second episode we're talking about talking with strangers?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is, be good people. Not necessarily us teaching you how to be good people, but me and Luke having a conversation on how we can be good. And we decided to talk about some books that we think help build that up. And this one, from the very, first, second episode, like we've been discussing this book. So I think it was just time to dig into it deeply.
Yeah. Yep. And I love it. I listened to it back in the fall when it came out, and then back in fall 2019. And then now just re-listening to it again has been good, as we're doing this. I use Audible, and Audible is a great way for this book because he did it as a nice podcast kind of format. And so it's easy to listen to and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited about digging into this again this week. And I think what we're talking about this week, we're at about, what chapter are we at? We're at section 2 of the book.
I think it's 5 and 6, chapters 5 and 6.
I think you're right.
It'd be 6 and 7.
Yeah, I think it's 5 and 6.
I think 5 and 6, yeah.
Yeah. And he's talking at this point, he's talking about how we can read people, and he uses an illustration from a popular TV show. And it's called the Friends Fallacy is what he calls it. Do you want to explain that to us?
He was going over the episode, and it was like when Ross found out that Chandler and I've never really sat down and watched Friends.
Oh, but gosh, this episode is so good.
Well, it was such a cultural phenomenon, and it's probably why he talks about it. I've never watched the entire series, but I know Monica and Chandler end up together, and Ross is Monica's brother. So it's when Ross finds out about it, and he's very mad, and then everything falls into place where, these two aren't just hooking up, like they're in love. And then Ross has this not really melancholy, but it's like a happy sadness. He's like, oh, my best friend and my sister are in love with each other.
And that's actually,
he's so wholesomely happy with that.
Yeah. And he says that twice in the episode.
Yeah.
So he sees from the apartment across, which is where he lives, through the window, Monica and Chandler. He runs over in a rage. Gotta shut this thing down. And that's what one of the best things is when he busts through the door. He's like, she's my sister and my best friend. This isn't okay. And you can see it on his face. And then all of a sudden you have this, after they talk a little bit, he's like, my sister and my best friend.
Well, that's what Gladwell was saying, was that this episode, you could tell what was happening with it being muted just by watching their faces. And so he brings in this facial expert, and they're pulling off codes, like this face is, X, Y, Z, and this face. But it was showing off these, we're reading these people's faces and learning the story they're trying to tell us.
I think the term he uses in the book is that it's transparent. It's transparent what they're feeling because they're purposely making their expressions to express how they feel. And that's what acting is, really. I mean, you're trying to convey an emotion. I mean, that's step one, is conveying that emotion. So you are trying to take on the persona of the emotion that you want people to know that you're having.
I think he called it facts, F-A-C-T. I couldn't find anything on that online when I looked it up. But
he mentions a researcher that was.
But it was a researcher who was doing it, and I found her. I just couldn't find anything to back up that acronym. But it was you call it a fallacy, and it's because we read those facial cues and assume that's everyday life. And then he takes a step back and says, well, that's what we see when we do facial expressions. And he brings in these different tribes and shows it to them, and they're like, I don't know, I don't know what they're saying, And it was to the point where, and we can go into all the clunky details with it, but at the end of it, he was saying that he was showing this tribe this thing, and then the researcher had brought out his iPod, and they were very like amazed at it, but they weren't doing like the ooh, like that. They just like did this like clicking sound, and that was their sign for shock and awe. And to me, like that was just so perplexing. Like what? Why would you do that? Well, it's because it's a different culture, like
with a different cultural norm for how you should respond physically.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think what it shows us is although we can understand the facial features and stuff, in real life we're not transparent like an actor is on a screen.
No.
Or like we're guarding emotion.
He says in fiction, like his eyes squinted in frustration, or his jaw dropped in shock. That doesn't happen in real life. If you see that in real life, you're like, okay, this person's being dramatic, like
and it depends
the dramatic
on what it is.
tag.
And I think there are some people that want to convey what they're feeling all the time. I'm not that guy.
No,
you can tell me all kinds of news. I'm going to stay deadpan the whole time. It's just who I am.
I think that's why me and you are friends in all of this.
we're the same. But I have friends too that like if I tell them some news that's like exciting but unexpected in my life, like they'll go and they'll like do all of that. And I'm like, what? Okay.
Are you okay? I'm like,
but
it's
the
just
thing
life,
is,
man.
But the thing is, I think what acting shows us really is that we act sometimes when we don't want people to know that. When we want to lie, when we are the stranger and we want to lie, we can paint our face with an emotion based on what we know they want us to respond with, not necessarily how our heart is actually responding to. Does that make sense?
Well, he mentioned that there was this, last week we talked about the judge rulings, the probation. Well, this one guy had put a gun to his girlfriend's head and pulled the trigger. The gun malfunctioned, didn't go off, and he got sent to jail.
It was attempted murder.
The judge talks. And the judge talks to him and says, it was his first girlfriend, it's first offense. He's never had a traffic ticket.
And they actually said he looked sorrowful.
And he looked sorrowful. He
regretted
he did all the motions. He looked, he looked
eyes
regretful.
Downward.
I'm so sorry. A very respectable man. And then a week later, after he's let out, his girlfriend's dead because he does it again.
He gets the bail. And then he goes out and kills her.
And Gladwell calls that the mismatch. He says that, the last week we talked about the nervous truth teller. Everyone's going to say, oh, she's lying, because that's our norm. When someone's nervous under pressure, they're obviously trying to hide something. Well, no, maybe some people are just nervous under pressure, or maybe some people are always confident. I remember, I forget, it was maybe 16, 17. We had went to this car dealership, and this guy was very confident, gave me a firm handshake, me and my dad, and I leave, and I was just like, I just got a weird feeling about this guy. Dad's like, no, he's good. We put a deposit down on the car, and Dad decided we had found another one, a better deal, and the guy like would not give us the deposit back, and I was like, see, I told you. But like, Dad wasn't wrong to think that guy was trustworthy, because he checked all the boxes.
Checked all the boxes of being trustworthy.
When you interview somebody, you want to see them face to face. You want to make eye contact. We're told that is very, very like important. Yeah. But when we dig into these scenarios that have played out in real life, it kind of, it falls short of that idea,
Well, and I'll be honest, like just as a parent, so a little personal experience. There's a couple things that grate me. And the first one is as a parent. I've got a son, Andrew, he's 11 years old. And when I'm disciplining him or calling him back in line he's acting outside of where he should be, and I'm calling him back in line. It's funny how he will, like, when he realizes he's wrong, he will go, yes, sir. Yes, sir. He doesn't call me sir. And I don't want him to. Like, I don't even want him to call me sir. I'm his dad. You know what I mean? Give me an embrace, buddy. That's how we live our life. I'm not a general. You know what I mean? Like, that's not our makeup of our home. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not our makeup.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
when he calls me sir, I'm like, dude, show me some respect. And it's weird because you're like, oh wait, he showed you respect. No, by saying that, he showed me no respect because he was
Yeah.
only doing it so that
He's
I
playing
would
a part.
think he was.
Yeah.
He was playing
Yeah.
a part because
Yeah.
that's not our normal relationship. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things where I'm like, you're doing what you think I want you to do, not what you actually are.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And the other one is
Yeah.
firm handshakes. I hate firm handshakes, man. Someone comes up and they give me that eye lock firm handshake. I'm like, okay, you're a liar. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
good to meet
I
you,
mean,
man. I don't trust you a bit now. And it's because
well,
you're
I mean,
giving me what you think I want.
Yeah, and you're on that borderline of like the millennial tag.
Yeah.
You know, I'm well in it,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of that like has kind of gone to the side a little bit. Like that, like you've got to be strong to, you know, defend your household against what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got Amazon like opening my door to let stuff in. Like we live in a very like pacified society. You know what I mean? Like that. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just see that like social norm, like from the, you know, the 50s, the Leave It to Beaver, you know, era.
Yep.
Not necessarily going out the window as if it was a bad thing, but just like,
just
you know,
change.
we're moving into something else, and maybe we are, maybe we're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, that yes sir thing. I don't know. That's what, you know, I was raised in, and I when you said that, like, I call out my 2-year-old, and sometimes I'm like, say yes sir, so I know you understand me. But like, it's a qualifier. It's not a like, you know. But I really understand.
In that circumstance, it's a little bit different. You're letting them communicate. You're giving them a way to communicate to you that they're hearing you and listening to you. But the funny thing is, with Andrew and I, we've never communicated that that's the bar.
Right.
So he's just doing what he believes will make me think that. And I'm like,
what he's heard from
for a
elsewhere.
minute. Like, I want to know what you really feel here, you know?
Yeah.
And we've always qualified, this is not important, but we always qualify, I reset who we are. So if we're ever having a problem and he's acting out or whatever, and I can't rein him in, or my daughter, I say, okay, guys, let's just stop for a minute. Who am I? You know what I mean? Like, let's just say who we are. Okay, I'm Dad. Okay, who are you? Okay, you're Andrew, your son, your daughter. Okay, who's in charge?
And
you know what I mean?
Talking. Like, yeah,
like,
exactly.
Let's just talk about it. And then normally by the time we get through that, I don't think it's magic. It's not like they didn't know.
No,
but like when we give it enough space of time, they're like, oh yeah, I got to remember. This is how I get to act here. You
Having too much fun. Here comes the
party
pooper dad.
Ruining the experience. Yeah, but no, that's that chapter really talks about. And one of the things he hits on is that mismatched.
Yeah. Well, he talks about
we can't.
He talks about.
We don't know it.
Well, then the next chapter is the Amanda Knox.
Yeah.
And what was it? 2004, 5?
Yeah, it would have been early.
I wasn't old enough to like pay attention to the stuff and care. I think it was like 14, 15 during that time. Like, what do you remember about that?
I don't.
Was it like, okay, because I remember hearing her name.
The crazy thing was, like, right around that time, there was a bunch of these national stories. There was a girl in the Caribbean that, you know, got murdered, and then no one could figure out who it was. And that was like, I felt like that was a leading story through that time. And the Amanda Knox one was like a, you know,
it was one of those followed, like,
it
the
felt
other
like
one was like getting a lot
of
of airtime, and they're like, well, we can follow up with this, get some good ratings and stuff.
And so it came out during that time. I remember it happening. I just didn't follow a lot of the news story around it. So.
Well, Malcolm was saying like she was a mismatch, and he started off by like starting off from her soccer middle school, you know, nickname, because these prosecutors who she got convicted. Where was it? Italy?
Yeah. Yes, I think
it was Italy. She was like a foreign exchange college student in Italy, and her roommate was brutally murdered. Had a suspect that was like hit all the nails on the head. The empirical data had him there.
Or the guy she was dating at the time.
But because she did not play the part like she needed to, like the mournful roommate, she got tied into, well, you know, what part did you play in this? She had no like DNA evidence other than, you know, someone who lives in a room there, like on the murder scene. Like there was nothing fingerprints near, the blood stains or anything like that.
Yeah.
But she got typecasted into it because she wasn't like sorrowful.
Yeah. And
during the police interviews,
if I remember the story right, it was her and her boyfriend walked in and found the scene and called the police. Is how that all started. And so they were suspects immediately, which was not outside of that. I mean, that makes sense.
I mean, it's usually always someone
that totally makes sense. Yeah, we should definitely question him.
Yeah,
not a problem to question him. But it was like in the questioning, like that day or the next day, like her and her boyfriend were like making out. Yeah. At the police station, and it was like people were like, you can't do that, you're supposed to be sad,
Yeah, right. Well, one of her friends came and asked her like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you, and she's like, why are you sad? Like, she was angry that this had happened. And Malcolm was saying, well, yeah, anger should be. Why is anger a bad reaction? Yeah, but it wasn't in that instance. It was, oh, you should be sad and we should be mourning. And it's like, I'm not mourning. Like, someone did something stupid. It wasn't like a grandparent having passed away. This was a violent act, and I'm going to respond to it in anger, which we do every day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Someone cuts me off in traffic, and I honk the horn. That is an acceptable behavior. But when we're talking about murder, it's like, well, then we've got to fill these roles. We've got to check these boxes, and the prosecutor just like had it out for her. And I think at the end of it, she's saying like, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like she told them, there's no evidence of me at the scene, and you're looking for evidence in my eyes. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's, I feel like that kind of translates in our day-to-day stuff, like I had that weird feeling with the car dealer, and it was based on like, this guy seems kind of shady. He's got, these different things about him, but I'm looking for evidence in a handshake that he's a good guy. You know what I mean? Like that's the exact opposite place we should look for stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we feel like we can read a person.
Right. And I trust myself to read them, like I've been in the situation. Yeah. I know these people.
I know how you should be responding and you're not. So raises a flag.
Well, and we're talking with a stereotype instead of a stranger, like
exactly.
That's his point he's trying to make there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to dispel that a little bit when we're dealing with people. And I think that ties back to the judge. You know what I mean? When the judge gets to meet the person, right? It actually, and he revisits that in this chapter, it actually reduces the likelihood of a sound judgment when they see the person. And I think it's interesting. He did an interview where he asked some questions of one of those judges, and is like, well, do you wish then that you could not see the defendant then? Do you wish you could not see them at all and not see them when they testify? And they're like, well, no, part of me still wants the human interaction. Like, it doesn't, you can tell me all the data says I can read this report and make a decision better. Right. But I still want to interact. I still want to confirm with my eyes.
At the end of all this, we're not doing a math equation. We're telling a breathing human that we're taking your liberty away. Yeah. And that deserves I think it deserves a face-to-face. If I get a face-to-face for an interview, I think if I'm going to be sent to jail, I deserve a face-to-face. You have the right to plead your case, but if the data is if we're getting it so wrong, I think he lands on, and I'm still just kind of grappling with it, but he kind of lands on like, that's just the cost of society. And that's what we said last week. Like it's messy. Like it's so messy, and we want to, especially in our day and age of like data analytics, pushing forward advertising, and that's what every business is built on in our consumer economy. Like we're just so driven by data, and very fine 90%, 95% correct answers, that we've missed out on this like messiness of the society that we live in. Yeah, we've got two different sides of ourselves, and I feel like that's kind of why we're seeing this, black and white in our politics, in our religion, in our stances on any given issue. It's this or that, because it's you're either right or you're wrong. There's no nuance to it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, and I think one of the other things he talks about, and I thought this was interesting. I didn't really see it coming when I was reading. And he doesn't spend a lot of time on it. He kind of throws it out there, like this is
Mhm.
maybe a future book, like because he throws it out there, but doesn't really talk on it, or maybe
Yeah.
he thinks we'll think on it
Yeah.
without talking about it. But he throws out this judge sitting in a courtroom, and a girl walks in, and because of her religion, her face is covered,
Yeah. With the
and it
hijab.
yeah, and
Mhm.
it can't be uncovered, and she needs to
Yeah.
keep it covered. She
He,
refuses to, and
yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
take it
Yeah.
away from her. And
Mhm.
so he throws the case out
Yeah. He says,
because
"I've
he's
got to
like,
look at
well,
your
if I
face."
can't read your face, then I can't know if you're telling me the truth.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Gladwell talks about how, that's actually a fallacy. You don't need to read her face. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he talks about that. But then he also says maybe the correct response now is to
Is that
have
we all?
everyone cover
Yeah.
their face
Hmm.
instead of have her uncover hers. And I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? That's such a statement. It was a statement, one, proving his point of like, actually, the judgment would have
Right.
been better if everyone's face was covered. But
Yeah.
also, what are we doing like to be equal with people? You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
thought it was very much a statement of like, why do we assume people have to fall in line with
Hmm.
this flawed system that we have in place? Maybe
Yeah.
they're actually, as the outlier in the system, they're actually
Mhm.
doing it in a better way. You
Well,
know what I mean?
that was the Amanda Knox story. Is she was always the outlier. Like
Yeah.
she said,
Mhm.
I didn't fit in with people, so I figured I would just be myself, which made sure that I didn't fit in with people. So she's not going to fit into like this, you
Yeah.
know, box checking system
Yeah.
that we're so accustomed to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and she the charges are dropped on her.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole
But she was in
story.
prison for 8 years.
Oh, really?
her
Okay.
and her and her boyfriend, because he got prison time too. They were both in
Jeez.
they were in jail in Italy for 8 years until it got turned over by the Supreme Court in Italy.
Okay, I
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
distracted on the
Yeah.
the one-liners that Malcolm. I didn't catch that fact. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh,
Which
that's
is
crazy.
crazy.
Then,
That's insane.
yeah.
I mean, and I'm glad that she's got justice now. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
when they overturned it, there was backlash to it when they overturned it. People were
They
like,
overturned
"What?"
it. Well, that was in the book. Okay, well that makes more
Yeah.
sense. I
Yeah.
thought she was being held. I didn't know it was for 8 years. But
Hmm.
he talked about when she came back. She had an interview with Barbara Walters, and
Yeah.
she was like scolding her for not being sorrowful during this time. Like,
Yeah.
why did you act the way that you did?
And
All this could
yeah.
have been avoided if you were to just acted like you were supposed to.
Yeah.
And that's like, I feel like that's our problem here, is that we've got these stereotypes
Yeah.
for people that we don't know, and we don't take the time to invest in it, and in like a relationship. And you don't have time to invest in a relationship with everybody that you
Yeah.
know. But I feel like we have lost this sense of humility. Like, oh, you're a tall guy with some shoulders, then you're the jock. Or that
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
uh watches anime and plays video games all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like, you're the scrawny girl, but oh no, she's the CrossFit girl, and she knows all these techniques that could take you
Yeah.
down in a second. You know what I mean? And we just we see and we assume, and we like size them up, and we're like, that's who you are, and I know it. And we have lacked the humility for so long to be like, I don't know everything about you. I don't need to, but I don't know you. You know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense a little
No,
bit?
it does. I mean, that's the danger of that stereotyping. You know what I mean? Like, that's the danger, is that, and I think what Malcolm's talking about here is when we stereotype in this specific instance, when we're interacting with a stranger or someone we don't know in a small amount of time. We started talking about Sandra Bland at the beginning
Yeah.
in a police stop. When we talk to someone in a short amount of time like that, we cannot read them as the stereotype.
No.
And when we do, bad things can come about. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when you're at Starbucks and you end up getting frustrated with somebody and walking away, that's not such a big deal. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, we can live with that relationship going awry, but we
Take a breath
can't
and move
live
on.
with a police officer stopping somebody in a car. We can't let that one go awry because there's a gun involved, there's authority involved,
There's some flaws
there's a
involved.
problem.
Yeah.
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 And
I mean, I think like you, yeah, I mean, that's basically, we just got to have nuance in our
yeah.
society. I don't know
Yeah.
how else to say it. Like, it's not a black and white issue on everything. Like
Yep.
we have to learn how to operate in the messiness because it's gonna be there, you know.
Yep.
It's always gonna be there.
Yeah.
It's just a cost of us living and breathing together.
Yeah. We don't get to live in the friend set where we are being,
No.
we're not being paid to emotionally respond the way everyone expects it. You know what I mean?
Wear it on our face.
Wear it on our face.
We're always gonna assume that we are more complicated than the stranger, and we're always gonna put them at black and white. But they're always gonna guard themselves like we guard ourselves.
And they're just as complicated as we are.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We have to respect that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, going forward, I mean, what does this look like for us this week, Curtis, you and me? I mean, I think my stranger interactions, I think when I deal with that, honestly, when I go to the coffee shop and I deal with that barista that's got a little bit of attitude and, you know, doesn't give me the respect I deserve.
Yeah.
How am I responding to her, understanding she's more complicated. She's got things going on in her life, and she may not be telling me with her face exactly how she feels about me. She may be telling me with her face how she's feeling about other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's when you get that, you know, snarky email or that whatever you want to call it. You let it roll off. If it's not a person that you know, you just let it roll off and just so that's the cost of me living and functioning in a society. You know, I'm not gonna let this rule my day and let me put all these things, like everything cross that's ever been said to me or done to me from the worst person that I knew. I'm gonna attribute all those things onto this person and just assume the worst of them. Well, I'm just gonna take it as a,
I don't think we have to assume the worst or assume the best.
Right.
I think we can assume the neutral. With people you don't know, you can assume the neutral. You're allowed to. You don't have to go best or worst. You know?
Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm not like the center of their universe.
Maybe they don't actually care that much about
Crazy
me.
concept. Yeah.
Maybe this isn't about me right now. I'm just getting coffee. You know, like they work here with a boss and have been here for 6 hours.
I'm the 60th person they've seen this hour. You know.
Well, I hope this week, Kurt. I hope this week I can be. I hope I can reflect what I read in there and let that kind of come through, because it is and it is pushing back against social norms
on yourself,
and stereotypes, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this wasn't. I say it's heavy. It's not the heaviest thing that he talks about in this book. Next week we're going to be talking about some heavy stuff, and I don't know. I started listening to it today, and it's going to take a full week to, you know, digest that. We're hopefully going to have a different voice on next week.
Yeah.
I think that's the plan.
We're trying to get somebody else to join us. That's a friend. And she's smart and
very smart.
We have lots of respect for her. So she may not have any respect for us. I have no idea, but I hope she can join us. So we're seeing, she's in a time difference, so may not be able to make it work. So next week we dive into that next, I guess it's chapter 7 on, and I
think we're going to spend it only on that. It's as far as like section,
it's worth a whole episode itself.
And it's a very long chapter in itself too. So but again, I mean, I've noticed, you know, I had a friend this week just started watching the podcast. So if you're watching it now and you want to engage here, or if you want to engage on different podcasts we've done, what is it, 14 now? We've gotten enough to where, and we'll respond to anything. So just, that's the whole point of this. It's not necessarily just, hey, look at here now, but anything we've said, we want to open the door to a conversation to where we can talk about more than just the blacks and the whites and get us into this gray area of messiness. So
Absolutely.
If anything that you see, like, that you want to push back on or want to hear more of what we meant when we said a certain thing, just, you know, reach out to us, comment, message us, whatever. We're happy to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are everywhere podcasts are. So you found us today, which is great. Glad
especially Spotify. We're definitely at Spotify.
Definitely on Spotify. If Spotify's listening, Spotify, I mean, we're available. If you
Have they asked us about exclusive rights yet?
Yeah, I've not.
Did I
I'm
just
sure.
stream that?
I'm sure they've emailed it. I just haven't checked my email today. So.
Yeah. All those messages, man.
Joe Rogan, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. I have no idea. So
A lot.
Yeah. All right. Well, Curtis, thank you for the conversation and for taking the time.
Yeah, man. You too.
I love it. So
good talk.
All right,
we'll
guys.
See you guys next week.